This week, Hammerhead, the creators of the Karoo and Karoo 2 cycling GPS units, have released a feature update that is similar, but just might outperform one of my favourite features of the Garmin Edge devices. What they've released is Climber functionality. Now this is what Garmin call Climb Pro, and if you're not familiar with this, it's a feature that works on the head units where when you're navigating a route or a route, it will detect the upcoming hills or climbs and display detailed information about where you're about to head. It will give you gradient, distance to go, and a ton of other information depending on the unit and the configuration. Now this is all automatic and based on the information stored on the head units, so there's nothing you need to do other than load a route and ride, and all that information is displayed on the screen. Now on the Karoo 1 and Karoo 2, you can have it display all climbs, medium and large climbs, or just large climbs. And all climbs must be at least 3% average grade and at least 500 meters long to be detected by the Karoo version of this Climber functionality. Now this is really useful information to have on screen if you're doing a longer climb for the very first time, or if you want to get your pacing just right if you're aiming for a KOM or a PB. I believe in the past I've called it Grand Fondo Helper because if you're going to a new location, riding a very large course or a very long course that you've never done before, having this information on screen is going to help you immensely. The on-road testing you're about to see was with the Hammerhead Karoo 1. The Karoo 2 is still en route here to the Lama Lab. Now one thing I've said before in other videos about this unit, and I'll repeat right now, is the screens on these are absolutely brilliant. Best in class doesn't even begin to describe how crystal clear these things are and how easy they are to navigate with touchscreen out on the road. That's been repeated many times by other users of this device. Okay, with that said, let's dig into the details of Climber. Okay, as I'm rolling up to the start of the very first climbs detected by the Hammerhead Karoo 1, I'll just go through the information you're seeing on screen before we hit the climb proper. Now obviously up there on the left you're seeing the Hammerhead Karoo with not all of the information shown just yet. It's a bit of pre-climb information to warn me that something's coming up in just a few hundred meters. That will change in just a few moments, at which time I'll pause again and go through all those details once it switches. Now over on the right is information recorded from the Garmin Edge 830, which I also had on the bike at the same time. I'm showing gradient, I'm showing elevation of the 3 climbs in this video, and vertical speed, so VAM, but not quite VAM as we know it. Verb Edit only shows VAM in meters per minute or meters per second. It doesn't show meters per hour. But I've left that there just as a reference point. Also as a reference point, in the bottom left-hand corner, I have speed, power, and cadence shown. Okay, here we are at the base of the first climb that Climber has detected on the Hammerhead Karoo 1. In lower third mode, which is the default that pops up on screen here, we have distance to top in kilometers, so 1.4 kilometers to go. There's elevation left to the top of the climb, but that value is not all what it seems. I'll explain further down the road. The graph shows the climb in its entirety, which is then broken up into 100 meter sections and color-coded based on the average gradient for each of those sections. The Hammerhead support website has the color key, which I'll put up on screen just quickly here. I'll also put a link below in the video description for all this information. Within this elevation box is a highlighted blue section, which indicates the upcoming 500 meters for scale. And below the elevation graph is also something related to the next 500 meters of road ahead. And the Karoo breaks down those into those 100 meter bins and gives you an indication of the average gradient for each of those 100 meter sections. It's effectively a gradient ticker that scrolls across as you're riding it in real time. I think it is very cool. Now swiping up and making the draw full screen, you can see that 500 meters rolling, moving along. You can also see that elevation ticker scrolling off to the left, and we have a little bit more information on the screen. We now have VAM showing, which I believe is vertical ascent in meters over an hour, and we have current grade. As I mentioned earlier, the elevation left to climb is a little tricky, especially when it gets to sections like this where you descend. You'll note the distance of climbing left to the top actually starts rising again as I descend and re-ascend. Ideally, I'd like that number to be included for the entire climb so I know exactly how much climbing I've got to go. Something to be aware of though, if you have some small descents in longer climbs like I do here. There's another section here where it goes from 6 meters of ascent to go. back up to 11, and then I've got to climb again. Maybe something they can address in a future update. Another thing I noted was when the distance to top of climb was less than 100 meters, the distance to top became 0.0. It'd be much more convenient with a second decimal point. Okay, climb number 1 done for the day, heading towards climb number 2. Now along the way, I'll pull up the upcoming elevation on screen, which isn't part of the climber functionality, but I thought I'd leave it here to show people how the Karoo shows upcoming elevation for those who haven't seen it before. Rolling past some alpacas and into climb number 2, where I'll get the pre-warning on screen just now. And I think it's around 100 meters later, it pops up with the climber information on screen. Okay, so we have 2.3k to go, 107 meters of climbing left, and we can see the 500 meter rolling section and the gradients scrolling along the bottom as I tick them off on the lower slopes of this climb. Scrolling through the data screens, and you can see the bottom drawer there does obscure some of the information I have shown on screen. Car back, that's the Vari radar doing its thing. And away we go into the climb. Okay, so that's it in action. Let's go through the pros and cons of this new feature. The pros, visually, as you've seen, it's great. It's fantastic. There's a lot of information packed into the screen there that you can interpret as you're riding up the climbs. Easy to read, easy to follow, tons of info, absolutely brilliant. Secondly, it's automatic. It just simply works. There's no additional overhead that you have to do to make that functionality pop up on screen for your rides. And finally, on my list of pros, it detected more climbs out of my test route than the Garmin did with Climb Pro with the Edge 830. So that's a tick to the hammerhead functionality. Okay, having sung all those praises on this functionality, let's get into the downsides, some cons, some things we'll probably see in updates in the near future. Now, there's no climb detected summary page prior to riding the route that you're doing, so it's a bit of a gamble what's going to come up as the climate functionality on here. Garmin have this on screen. They also have distance to next climb information always on screen too, so that functionality is missing on this. It would be a brilliant addition to it. Next up, the lower third drawer hides on-screen data fields. So it kind of gets in the way. I'd like to see that information squished up into the top 2/3 of the screen, and the lower third still show the drawer information. And as we saw in the road test just before, when the climate screen was full screen, the radar alerts were behind that, so I couldn't see them at all. And with the Hammerhead Karoo one having no beeper, I just didn't know there was a car coming. For a device that is, well, I'm hesitant to call it a safety device, more so an awareness device that people rely on, it just simply disappeared. I thought it was actually disconnected, but the sensor was still there, it was just behind the screen. So again, they just need to get the overlay correct on that one. And lastly, a few little additions to the screen would be helpful. Another decimal point to the distance to go would be handy, and a little percentage sign too, so we know what number we're looking at right here. Continuing on my cons list, future ideas list that I'll just throw out there. First up, to address all the cons and bring this on par with the Garmin Climb Pro functionality. Look, to be honest, if they're going to copy Climb Pro, copy it all and then make it better from there. I'd love to see this Climber functionality on the Karoo units and Climb Pro on the Garmin units work in freeride mode by detecting the climbs that you're about to head up, and maybe give you a list of 2 or 3 popular climbs in that direction, so you can click on screen or acknowledge that, yes, I am doing this climb today, and having that same functionality in a freeride mode. That way we don't have to be following a designated route every single ride to enjoy this new information on screen. Now, of course, that's going to be very hard to do. Probably even harder for Hammerhead because they don't have the millions or billions of data points that, say, Garmin or Strava already do to know where people are riding. However, this may be something they can get from Strava as third-party data access or a resource and bring it to the people in freeride. That would be brilliant. Oh, and do note, that would also be optional, so you could turn that on and off. I could see that getting quite annoying for some people too. Okay, we'll wrap this one up here for today. Thanks for watching this one, and let me know if you're a Karoo 1 or a Karoo 2 user and you'd like to see more update videos from me like this on these units. Hammerhead release feature set updates every 2 weeks. I focused closely on this one today because it had the climber functionality, and as you've seen, it's quite significant. Or maybe you're not a Hammerhead Karoo user and you just want to see what's out there. Let me know in the comments below. As always, hit thumbs up on this video, hit subscribe to support this channel, and thanks for watching.